Hello, y'all. I'm on this bike again, trying to get as much exercise as possible. And it's fun to be on the bike and do videos. So I created a playlist called the Shanquella B. Robinson Tragedy. So go through that playlist and you can watch some of those videos. Every video that I found about the story, about the tragedy of her being murdered by these friends on this trip in Mexico. I just added it to the playlist. And as a result of me doing that, and the reason I do that is because each video may have a different detail. I mean, the videos may be similar, but they're by different YouTubers. They will be presented different ways. A lot of the videos on there will have some spiritual element involved, and so you'll get great advice and things like that. But I came up with this idea, doing a playlist about red flags. What are the red flags of Shanquella's death? What are they? So this will be the first video about that. So it will motivate me to go through each video that's on that playlist that I created, because I can get to see different red flags. Because remember, when something happens to us, we don't see the red flags right away. Okay, the red flags, we have to use hindsight to see that, which means we have to look back, because the red flags are there, but we have to go back in time. You have to view the past to see. And the past is yesterday, right? So she was murdered. Shanquella Robinson was murdered the end of October. So we get to look back. So this is the first red flag that I came up with. And as a disclaimer, this is not meant to disrespect anybody that celebrates these holidays. But they were going to Mexico because there was a celebration called the Day of the Dead. Now, one of the first videos in the playlist that I created is by Ringo TV. And so that was the first video that's in that playlist. And this gentleman does excellent videos. I mean, he's just amazing, right? I don't know this man personally, but I am really liking the videos. So, and spiritually, I'm on the same page with this gentleman's views. This is a man that believes in the Most High. So I'm doing my own thing. I mean, I'm not a big, great YouTuber like he is. I mean, he's grown, he's been on YouTube many, many years. I have not grown to his level. I may never grow to his level. I am just focused on what I'm doing here. So, but I am a spiritual woman also. I believe in God Almighty. I believe in a Most High. There's a God in heaven. I believe that there's an afterlife of some sort, right? So I'm going to say this. So the first red flag would be this: the Day of the Dead. Okay. And like I said, as a disclaimer, I'm not trying to talk about nobody's holidays, but I am not a Halloween celebrator. Let me say that. And it's the same concept of this Day of the Dead thing. So the pictures and stuff that I was seeing of the Day of the Dead over in Mexico, it kind of reminds you of a Halloween thing. And remember, during these times when there's celebrations for Halloween, the Day of the Dead in Mexico, and things like that, there are a lot of deaths during that time. Okay. And a lot of deaths that take place are sacrifices, y'all. I mean, we got the occult. There is a such thing as a satanic occult. So if you do your study, you will find information on that. So do that on your own time. But the first red flag is this. Always remember this. None of us fully know completely when our last day is on earth. Not completely. You could have an intuition, you could have a dream, you could feel something. Some people can even feel before they get diagnosed with the illness, okay? But the bottom line is this: Day of the Dead, don't go to stuff like that. So, in hindsight, we can look at Shanquella's death and we have to look at, well, where was she going? What was going on in that particular place? And if you are a person that's a believer, you believe in good and evil. So for someone that believes in a most high and in a God in heaven, and you believe in the whole concept of the biblical historical stories and things like that, you believe in demons. I mean, so this would be my thought process, looking at it from a spiritual point of view. If I plan to go to something in another country, or even if I chose to celebrate Halloween in my own country, in the United States, right? Day of the Dead, Halloween, it all looks scary to me. Is that an energy of light or dark, or good or bad? I'm not going to say light and dark. I don't really like using that terminology because I don't like to link dark with bad. Like, for example, you got dark complected skin. Is that bad or is that beautiful? No, that's beautiful. So I try to catch myself when I use that term because I don't necessarily mean, or I don't necessarily think light is good. Okay. I mean, but those are the terminologies that are used. But I'm going to say good and bad, right? So looking in hindsight, I would have to say that the first red flag of her potential death would be going somewhere where they were celebrating the Day of the Dead. And this is no disrespect to Spanish people or people that are from Mexico. Okay? I have great neighbors and friends that are from Mexico. Okay, so it's no disrespect to them. But my friend from Mexico knows that as a spiritual person, I don't celebrate Halloween. I don't celebrate the Day of the Dead. If you get to know me, you would know that that's something I would not celebrate. But Shanquella, she hadn't made it to that point in life. And she just hadn't made it there yet. She was only 25 years old. So going forward, what I like to do is try to figure out what we can do to prevent these things. So consider staying where you are and not going certain places, especially poverty stricken countries. Consider staying where you're at around your family and do not celebrate Halloween, the Day of the Dead, or things like that. Become more strict. And if you do celebrate Halloween and the Day of the Dead, now you can stop doing it. Because in my opinion, it's borderline a bunch of witchcraft stuff. And I had a relative that did some stuff, went off with a few friends, knocking on people's doors, and did not obey his upbringing. You know how relatives can be when they want to do what they want to do, sneaking off and doing stuff like that. And so I had a talk with that relative about it and the dangers of Halloween. Knocking on strange people's doors is not a good idea. I don't care what day it is. I told my relative, I said, well, what if somebody would have came to the door and just blew all y'all away? Whose fault is that? But that's the thing, and I'm not sure if Shanquella's mom, she doesn't seem like she would be somebody that's big on Halloween. I'm just going to be honest, but maybe she was a Halloween celebrator. but she just doesn't seem like she got too deep into that. But I don't know her mom personally, but she just seemed like somebody that maybe tried to celebrate it a couple of times, but just wasn't into it. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Listen to the name of something too. The Day of the Dead. Okay, I'm going to Mexico to celebrate the Day of the Dead. That don't sound like something that you gonna come back and make it out of. So be more mindful and don't let people tell you that you're paranoid. Okay, so this is gonna be my part one of red flags regarding the Shanquella B. Robinson tragedy, because that's what I named it under my playlist. And as I watch the videos going through the playlist, this will motivate me to make sure I watch all the videos in the playlist. A lot of times when I add to my playlist, I've watched it. Usually I've watched it and just thought it was interesting and something that you might want to see. When I add something in my playlist, that does not mean I agree with it. Let me point that out. It's just saying I thought it was interesting. I put it in the playlist. So, again, this is going to be part one or episode one of what I think is a red flag. And the red flag is going to a country outside of your own country where they're celebrating something called the Day of the Dead. To me, that's worse than calling it Halloween. Okay, at least when they call it Halloween, it's somewhat of a cover up. But Halloween ain't nothing but celebrating the Day of the Dead, too. But in Mexico, they just downright just coming right out with it. And me being a spiritual woman, it's all a form of witchcraft. And remember this, I am not a hypocrite. I live what I teach. I do not celebrate Halloween at all. I just don't. So I'm not on here telling you not to do it while I'm over here getting some pumpkins carved out for next year. Or I'm just now throwing away the pumpkins that I had for Halloween. None of that's going on. I do not deal with no Day of the Dead stuff. Each person has a right to do what they want to do. However, that is going to be the first red flag that I see. It involves the place and the celebration that was going on in that particular country in Mexico at the time. And if you're a subscriber and you're Spanish or you're from Mexico, this is not to offend you. That's just my opinion on what I think is a red flag. And I don't care if you are from Mexico. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think that that's a good thing to be celebrating. I just don't. You can do it, but I just don't think it's healthy. Okay? And in this particular young lady's case, for Shanquella Robinson, this tragedy of what happened to this young lady, it wasn't in her best interest either. And don't feel like just because you were raised in Mexico that you got to continue to celebrate that. I don't do everything that I was raised to do. It's some things that I was raised to do I don't agree with. My mother did not celebrate Halloween. So that was something that I actually carried on throughout my adult life, right? But I'm just sharing my perspective. And remember, this is advanced insight. So let's not just look at the friends and the murder and what happened to Shanquella, let's start with the first red flag of what she was going to in the first place. Over to Mexico, celebrating the Day of the Dead. Don't do it, y'all. So, as I watch the videos, like I said, I'm going to come up with more red flags and things like that for episode 2. So, tune in for episode 2, okay? Thank you so much. I am still on this bike, y'all. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Love y'all. Be safe out there, okay?